Got a little bit of Mississippi travel going on. If you haven't already, you need to check out the rest of our channel. It's all about chainsaws. Had a video posted last week on modification of saws, some things to think about there if you're thinking about modifying. And then a lot of different cutting techniques, sharpening techniques, a lot of things about chainsaws. So give it a shot. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please press that like button if you find it part of something you'd like to continue to watch and keep up with. Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's where we are this week. We're going to be doing a hands-on session with some of the Mississippi LTAP, and then we're heading down to do a couple demonstrations this week also in Macomb, Mississippi. Back home, then we'll be back here for day 3 on Monday, setting up today some felling and a little bit of storm damage stuff for the work on Monday here. Before I start the videos on the training today from our trip to Mississippi, I wanted to share with you a little story. Usually when I start off the programs, I always ask if there's anyone that's injured with a chainsaw. I always have one or two occasionally. And more or less, I asked him, I said, what happened? He said, well, I'm kind of embarrassed about it a little bit, but he said, I was at home. I was cutting some firewood, and my nephew and I had finished cutting. My saw was getting a little dull, so I'd taken my chaps off, and he came up with another piece of wood, a pile, and basically one of the pieces was a little bit too long, so I needed to trim it off a little bit. So I took on the ground, kind of holding it with one foot and taking the saw and revved it up and started to try to trim it off. And when I did, the piece kind of rolled out of the way, and because it was dull, I was kind of pushing on it, and basically it came into my right knee. Got a few stitches there. He said it happened just a few weeks ago. He said, my chaps were sitting right on the tailgate next to me. He said, I was only going to make one cut, so I didn't take the time to put my chaps back on. So this is a situation where someone got cut with their chaps on the tailgate. So think about that. It can't work unless you put it on, whether it's the chaps or the hard hat or the eye protection or ear protection. It can't work unless we put it on. Something to think about. Good sawing.
Now, when I get down there close to the bottom, what's going to happen? It's going to move. So I got to think about when I get close to cutting off fiber, you got to think through, it's going to move, so you got to anticipate that movement. So what do? Back up a little bit. Use the tip of the bar. And that lowers the damage. Now, to cut that move, I'm not going to go back in there. I'm going to take an offset. Watch this now. Even if I get stuck, and think about this, I don't want to pull it. See, if I pull that up and that chain stretches away from the bar, where does that pressure go? Crankshaft and bar tip. You can mess up a good chainsaw that way. But if I offset that just a little bit, you see that fiber is actually already cut in between because I'm in the face notch angle, and I cut down past my hinge that I left, and so it's just a matter of giving it a minute to break loose. If I offset that way, it'll fall down. If I offset to this way, it holds it there until the machine gets there. And I can't get my bar under here very well, but watch, I can turn this way and do it. Then it starts to drop. Have you ever seen log levitation? You know how you have one across the asphalt or something? It's flat and you can't get anything under it? Watch this now. Where's my hammer? Who's got my hammer? It's flat on the ground, that's not quite flat on the ground. You see it's trying to come up. It'll separate it. See what it did? Because the wedge in there, get to the bottom, it's pushing it apart so it doesn't grab my saw. Offset cut. So I can do vertical or up and down. This was cool because I can go down through and cut this whole tree up in offset cuts, and now I know the backhoe's coming. So then the backhoe comes in. See, as long as I bypass those two, it's actually cut. A couple of y'all kicked that a little bit. Maybe I just ain't hitting it. Maybe a little more butt. So if I put it close together, it came apart easier. Or I could put it farther apart and just have to touch a little harder with the machine. So I did a bore cut through and then offset both those cuts to the right side. And what that gives you, see, so you got tongue on one side, groove on the other. Because if I get it right, it'll be straight. This is the spring pole we talked about. So where do I cut? I take my hands, make a square corner, come down the top to the back, move my fingers. And I get right in through here. Okay? Then come back the same amount that's going forward. So I stand at 45. What's my mark now? I'm a little bit off. You know how when you're trying to cut a stump down and you get kind of close to the ground, what happens is that you get a little dirt there and it starts to really add up. Well, you can cut this right down to ground level or really below. It'll do a pretty good job. And reason why, this holds the stump off of your saw. So it doesn't let it sit down on your bar.